infrastructure assets are often the most significant assets owned by state and local governments. The GASB recently issued a preliminary views document to improve the accounting and financial reporting for infrastructure assets. These assets include things like roads, bridges, water and sewer systems.
The GASB's pre-agenda research found that users want more information about the condition of government's infrastructure assets and how governments are maintaining them. The preliminary views is how the board is currently thinking on providing that information. The preliminary views proposes to carry forward existing recognition and measurement requirements that allow governments to measure infrastructure using historical cost net of accumulated depreciation unless the government elects to use the modified approach. The document also proposes that governments reporting infrastructure assets measured at historical cost net of accumulated depreciation periodically review estimated useful lives and salvage values.
Another item we're including in the proposal that's aimed at improving the financial reporting of infrastructure assets so that the value reported on the statements is more reflective of the condition and that the costs are spread over the appropriate period is what we call componentization of those assets. This is when a significant part of the cost of an infrastructure asset has a significantly different useful life than the rest of the infrastructure asset. In that case, under the proposal, you would separate those components and record and depreciate them separately. Prime example of this is for a road where the base of the road often has a useful life of 40, 60, 70 years, but the surface of the road has a much less significant useful life, like 5, 6, 7, maybe even 3 years. In those cases, those different components of the road under our proposal would be separated and depreciated.
The preliminary views proposes that 3 note disclosures be removed from GASB's current literature. First, a description of the modified approach for governments that report infrastructure assets using the modified approach. Second, small governments that didn't capitalize infrastructure assets with the implementation of Statement 34 need not disclose that fact anymore. And third, idle infrastructure assets that are impaired no longer need to be disclosed. The preliminary views also proposes to add 4 new note disclosures. First, a disclosure of maintenance or preservation expense for all infrastructure assets by major class. Second, the government's policy for monitoring and maintaining or preserving its infrastructure assets. Third, changes in the government's policy for capitalizing infrastructure assets or estimating useful lives and calculating depreciation. And fourth, for infrastructure assets reporting using historical cost net of accumulated depreciation, the historical cost of infrastructure assets that have exceeded 80% of their estimated useful lives. The preliminary views also proposes that governments that report infrastructure assets using historical cost net of accumulated depreciation present a schedule of maintenance expenses as required supplementary information.
As part of the due process in this project, we will be holding a series of public hearings and user forums. More information on participation in those is included in the preliminary views document. It's really important that we hear from all of our stakeholders on this important project. This preliminary views document is the first of 2 planned rounds of public comment periods. This one written more like just views of the board, not an actual standard. The next round will be an exposure draft. Please review the document, comment by the due date, which is January 17th, 2025. You can comment through an electronic input form or the more traditional comment letter. More information on all of this is included at our website, gasb.org.